let's get opening statement moving forward, Eileen.
Planning Board meeting, October 21st, 2021. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Planning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 8th, 2021, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Asbury Park Press and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 8th, 2021, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 8th, 2021, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. Members of the public will have a chance to ask questions and comment on applications once the chairman opens the hearing up for members of the public. If you wish to ask questions or comment on an application, you will need to use the raise your hand feature and we'll bring you into the meeting one at a time. You will need to have audio and video capability. You will be sworn in and you will need to provide your name and address. For anyone calling in, you can raise or lower your hand by dialing *9, and you can mute or unmute yourself doing *6. This meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you, Eileen. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bavai,
Here.
Mr. Dorado,
Here.
Mr. Husser,
Here.
Chief Kudrick,
Here.
Mr. Leggio has been excused. Mr. Nicastro has been excused. Councilwoman Richmond has been excused. Mr. Seaman,
Here.
Ms. Casper,
Here.
Mr. Cristiano,
Here.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, could everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for all of our first responders and those both serving here and abroad.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all. Thank you. Eileen, approval of minutes, please.
We have no minutes this evening.
Vouchers,
We have no vouchers this evening.
correspondence.
I do have correspondence. I have a letter from Ed Liston. He is Mr. Hammer's attorney. He has asked that we please carry this application to the board's January 6th, 2022 meeting so that they can do a possible revision to their minor subdivision plans using additional property so they can eliminate the variance required. He's also granted the board an extension of time through March 1st of 2022.
Great, thank you. Resolutions, case number,
Can we
Sorry?
carry that on the record first?
oh, I'm sorry.
Ron,
Go
you're
ahead, Ron.
muted.
Yeah, just give me one moment. Just getting out the, and Eileen, what was the date again?
January 6th, 2022, which was already advertised as our reorg meeting.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so the application of Michael Hammer, application number, is that SSD dash?
No, it should be SD. That's a typo, 2994.
SD 2994 for Michael Hammer, be carried to the board's January 6th, 2022 meeting. I guess, Eileen, at this point, all of our meetings are still scheduled to be virtual, correct?
Yes, I don't know what's going to happen with that one, if that's going to be a live meeting or not.
All
We're
right, well,
waiting
for
to
now,
see.
we'll just say it's virtual. And if
Right.
it changes, we'll deal with it. That will, at this point, be a virtual meeting beginning at 7 o'clock. The instructions on how to access the virtual meeting will be on the town's website at least 10 days prior. If you received a notice, you will not receive another notice in the mail. This is your notice. Michael Hammer, be heard on January 6, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that is all I have for correspondence.
Okay, we'll get into resolutions. Case number SP 004, BlackRock Enterprises. Eligible voters, Mr. Provide, Mr. Husser, Chief Kudrick, Ms. Casper, Mr. Cristiano, and myself.
I'll make a motion to approve case number SP-1084 BlackRock Enterprises.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bavai,
Yes.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
yes,
Mr. Cristiano,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Resolutions memorialized. Thank you.
Next resolution is case number SD-3000. Eligible voters are Mr. Gerardo, Mr. Husser, Chief Kudrick, Mr. Seaman, Ms. Casper, and myself. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve case number SD-3000, John Kelly.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
yes,
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized.
Next resolution is case number SP-1088. Eligible voters are Mr. Husser, Chief Kudrick, Ms. Casper, Mr. Cristiano, and myself. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion to memorialize.
Thank you.
I'll
second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Cristiano. Roll call, please.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
yes,
Mr. Cristiano,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized. Thank you.
Okay, submission waivers. Case number SP-1093, Ecosystems LLC. Who do we have representing?
That's Mr. Alfieri. I just brought him into the meeting.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Salvatore Alfieri on behalf of the applicant. There are 8 submission waivers that are reflected in Ms. Newman's October 1st report.
Hey, Laura, do you swear or, oh, I'm sorry, Sal.
Okay, I was going to defer to Laura for comments.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have an October 1st, 2021 review letter. The submission waivers are specifically outlined in number 3. And although there are many submission waivers, I think it's important to note that this is a minor site plan. It's someone who's going to be converting an existing use within a building with very, very minor site improvements. So given the scope of this application, I take no exception to the granting of these waivers for the purposes of deeming the application complete.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Alfieri, do you have anything to further?
I can't top what Laura just said, so no, nothing. further.
Thank you. Okay, if anybody from the board has any questions, please bring them up. Other than that, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bavai,
Yes.
Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Mr. Husser,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Ms. Casper,
yes,
Mr. Cristiano,
Yes.
and Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Before we get to the next case, I apologize. I was remiss in asking our professionals a question for upcoming applicants coming up to us. You know, it's my understanding that there is a new rule or law that the governor has put in place about having electric car charging readiness for applications coming, site plan applications and other applications coming to the board. Does anybody know, is that something that is implemented immediately? It has a certain time period before it needs to start being implemented. It's a good idea.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to go into the details of it for numerous reasons, but we're evaluating it right now. The Institute of Local Government Attorneys is evaluating it as well to provide comments, but I think better we just wait to see if anyone tries to avail themselves of it. I don't want to encourage or discourage any activities on the part of the developers.
Okay, fantastic. But it's not something the board has to be concerned with at this time.
It would be an application by application type of impact. So, and you know, it depends on how an applicant wants to use it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll get to case number SP-1085, AAFFHW property.
Chair, I'll have to recuse myself from this application.
Okay, Nick, have a good night.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you, Nick. You
Same to
too.
you.
Good night,
Take
Nick.
care.
This is Mr. Pape's case.
Mr.
Good
Pape?
evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members and board professionals. Kenneth Pape on behalf of your applicant AAFFHW Property LLC. And Mr. Chair and board members, this application was started at the September 2nd, 2021 meeting. That evening, we had considerable opportunity to present testimony to you. And Patrick Lynham, the design engineer, took us through the entire project. Dr. Raymond Walker, the environmental scientist working on the project with us, testified, and so did Sean Nager, our architect. There were questions and concerns brought to our attention by the board and the board professionals, and we recorded those, and we went back as a team and worked on those revisions. We had also made a commitment to have our plans, revised plans, submitted early so that your professionals would have an opportunity to review and write reports. And I'm also pleased to advise you that in addition to getting the plans and reports in early and getting the response back from your staff, we have had the opportunity to review their reports. And this evening, we're prepared to be responsive to those. I intend this evening, with the chair's permission, to recall Patrick Lynham. He'll present a brief outline of the revisions that he memorialized as his responsibility, the things that were changed on the plans. I also intend to recall Dr. Walker. There are a couple of environmental questions for Dr. Walker that I think we can answer more completely. Sean Nager made some minor revisions to the architectural plans, although you may recall that his plans were well received by your professionals at the last meeting. There are a couple of tweaks that he did to be responsive. And with me also is this evening is Dan Desario and Joseph Fishinger. When we reach their scheduled slots, I'll ask if there's a need for further traffic testimony. I think you're going to hear considerable traffic design elements from Patrick as he presents the revisions to the plan. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recall Mr. Lynham, who was qualified as an engineer, and I remind him that he is under oath.
Please proceed.
Mr. Lynham, just state your name for the record again before you begin.
Yes, Patrick Lynham, P-A-T-R-C-K, Lynham, L-Y-N-A-M.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Lynham. If you could, I think probably the best thing is to just do a brief overview of the revisions that you've made or added to the plan, and then we'll go through each of them more specifically.
Okay, should I have control to show exhibits?
You can.
These are exhibits that were previously submitted to the board?
Yes.
Yes, everything was submitted to
Okay.
Counselor.
All right, so then Eileen has pre-marked them.
Yep.
Ken, do you have the list of exhibits?
I do.
Okay, so just as Mr. Lynham puts them up, if you could just tell us which exhibit it is.
Let's see, I'm looking.
Eileen, are you going to give me permission?
I don't need to. You can just
Oh.
go ahead.
All right. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Excellent.
I'm looking
Okay.
on the updated exhibit list and looking for. if you could read the title block?
Yes, this is a new exhibit that has been updated since the last hearing.
That's
It is-
A33.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With A33 in full view of the board and public, if you could just first do an overview of the revisions that are on this plan.
Okay, so based on the hearing we had previously and the board professionals' comments, we had updated plans. We updated the circulation based on comments by the board engineer. We have removed a guard shack that was at the northwest corner of Building A. We included additional details regarding the fire tank, which is south of Building B. We also prepared an alternative lighting plan. We also included electric vehicle charging stations, as well as additional changes to the architectural plans, and as well as minor updates based on the technical comments.
Now, there's one other point. I think that we discussed this at the last one. If we just emphasize, there was a request that we widen Howell Road in front of our client's property. Has that full road widening as requested by the board and staff been incorporated into the plan?
Yes.
Okay. A little out of order, just because the charging stations came up during the prologue of tonight's hearing. Mr. Chair and board members, we are aware of the pending bill S3223. And that bill, as we understand it, requires that there be a finite number of charging stations on just about every project as come in the future. And then there's also provisions for more charging stations in the future. As part of this, our client is prepared to voluntarily meet the goals of that bill. The first goal is to have charging stations now, and the second goal is to have more in the future as their need increases. And Patrick, if you could confirm that there are charging stations shown and that there's conduit for future charging stations if that statute is.
Mr. Pape, just before you get to that, there's other portions of that bill as well. I just want to make sure. So you're stipulating that the applicant will comply with providing the requisite number of charging stations. Are you asking, you're going to retain the same total number of parking spaces? So you're not seeking to adjust the number of parking spaces?
No, not at all.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No, it's just, there's a lot about this application that has green initiatives. That one became available to us and we incorporate into the plan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So look, Patrick, a little out of order, but if you could describe the revisions that you've made to the plan to the on-site circulation.
Sure. So I just want to confirm that there's some clarity that we need to provide, that we have removed the left turn lane from Howell Road, and it's our intention to restrict trucks from entering Howell Road, as Howell Road has a weight restriction. We do have wayfinding signage internal to the site directing trucks out the Okerson Road driveway, and we will agree to add further signage at the driveway restricting trucks from entering the Howell Road driveway. So I just wanted to clarify that right off the bat. As far as the internal circulation, there's some overlap with some of the trucks traveling in either direction along the internal circulation lanes. We have increased radii in a lot of areas to accommodate the trucks circulating without interfering with each other. The one major change is at the northern intersection, internal intersection between buildings A and B. We had split that into a sweeping right turn lane and then a direct left turn lane, and that was to accommodate the trucks traveling in either of those directions. So that was the only significant change. The others are minor radii changes to accommodate on-site circulation. There was two areas that were further identified by the board engineer at the rear corners of each of the buildings, with some overlap traveling around the corners of the buildings. And we designed those to accommodate trucks leaving. And in order to preserve buffers, we're looking to modify the internal radii, and we're looking to work with your board engineer, if it's acceptable to the board, to come up with a solution to address those concerns at those locations.
It's my understanding there's two-way traffic around those buildings.
Yes, and we
Yeah,
want to.
we have a landscaping plan designed to be consistent with the ordinance and especially consistent with Ms. Spiro. And what we're talking about is preserving the two-way traffic there and working on some modifications to the interior radii. So we will not in any way compromise or touch the landscaping.
That's correct.
Okay, and we're asking for permit. This came up in the staff report when we met with your professionals in the last week. We remain very comfortable. Patrick, help me here. But we remain very comfortable that we can address those comments of Ms. Newman without touching that landscaping.
Correct.
Okay. If you would like to talk briefly about lighting, because that was a discussion point when we were before the board the last time. And one of if the board may recall that we're having some difficulty complying with the ordinance and having a plan that we felt was safe. And it's my understanding, Patrick, that you've created two plans, one lighting plan 100% consistent with the ordinance, and one which maybe it's your opinion that is superior, but would require some limited relief.
That is correct.
I'm going to ask if you could present both to the board, and I'll say to the board members, we look to you for guidance. We can do either one of these plans, 100% compliant, or the one that we think might be even better. So Patrick, if you would.
Yes, I'm bringing up the lighting plan that's within the site plan set, which is the compliant lighting plan. And as you can see, we are providing the lighting levels in accordance with the ordinance, which requires a minimum of 0.3 foot candle within the areas to be lighted, and then a maximum of a half a foot candle for all the areas that have been lighted. So which is compliant, as you can see in the table here. We also prepared a alternative lighting plan, which we brought up here. And we had shifted poles to be closer together to increase the minimum foot candle within all the areas to be lighted. The travel ways, the sidewalks, parking areas, and so forth. So we increased the minimum from 0.3 to 0.5 within those areas. However, it did result in an increase in the average to 0.9. So that's obviously greater than half a foot candle, but it's still below 1 foot candle. We do feel that this plan is superior, as it does provide higher lighting levels within the critical areas of the project, and also meets IES standards.
So, Mr. Chair, board members and board professionals, we are comfortable with either, but would look to you for your guidance as to which you find to be the superior plan. And that whichever you choose is the one that we would then move forward with. We talked about the electric vehicle charging station. If you could just identify where they're shown on the plan and how many are proposed for the first go round.
Sure. I'm just going to bring up the dimension plan of the site plan set. So we positioned the electrical vehicle charging stations closer to the offices in the center of the parking fields on both buildings, so it can be accessible from all the offices in one central location. As you can see, for building B, We have the charging station at this location. And then we will make additional conduit, empty conduit along these bays of parking to provide additional made-ready electrical vehicles charging stations. Similarly, on Building A, we have a charging station at this location for these vehicles. And that's in between the northern office and the center office. And we did provide another charging station between the middle office and the southern office for these vehicles so they can share those charging stations. And again, these will have additional empty conduit to allow for future need-ready electrical vehicle charging stations.
And that additional charging stations is contemplated in the statute, and it's for that reason that the conduit is proposed. Mr. Lineham, if you could confirm on the record that we continue to have a greater number of parking stalls than the ordinance requires, and there's no loss of parking as a result of this accommodation.
That is correct.
There was also questions of the fire tank location and height. If you could identify for all where it is located, and if you could identify how it is proposed to be painted and how it is proposed to be filtered with planting material.
Yes, I'm going to bring up a new exhibit that we prepared. Not sure which one this is.
Mrs. Urbano, could you help us with the number? This is the tank. I think it's 30. I can't find it.
It's called the Water Tank Sightline Exhibit. We have prepared this based on comments that we received from the board at the last hearing. You could see where the circle is, where my hand is, and that is just south of Building B, and in between the basin, the proposed wet pond, and Building B, and close to in between the driveway to Howell Road and the internal driveway. So that circle is the location. You can see here the dark dashed line representing where the sight line profile is taken, which is at the bottom of the page of the exhibit. The tank is proposed to be 25 foot tall, as you can see here. And the diameter is wide enough to accommodate the 250,000 gallon fire tank that is proposed. And it would be painted in order to match the architecture, so it would blend into the buildings in the back. So that was the intention. Also, you could see here in the exhibit, the darker trees or landscaping is the trees at the planting height. And then you can see the lighter trees, that is the mature height of the trees after 10 years.
So the goal was, I mean, the water tower is visible. The goal was to have it not stand out, but the goal was to filter its view and not necessarily to block its view from the traveling public.
That is correct.
So I think, Mr. Lineham, that is a summary of the changes that have been made to the plan. Did we miss anything?
Not going to.
Okay. So
At least in my notes, I don't know if our professionals want to weigh in, but I have in my notes, outdoor storage.
no outdoor storage. There are, as you can see on the plan, there are trailers that could at loading docks, but there is no trailer storage on this plan, and there's no outdoor storage on this plan.
Mr. Chairman, I have just 3 questions for the engineer.
We want to get you sworn in. Do we need, Mr. Cuchero, do we need to swear in our professionals?
I think I was previously sworn.
We'll just swear you in again. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So Mr. Lyman, first, I just want to confirm that public sanitary sewer service will be provided to the site.
That is correct.
And then two things, I had the opportunity to follow up with the in-house engineering department. And we'd like to request, in addition to the sidewalk and the widening, that curbing be provided along Howell Road. Are you agreeable to that?
Yes,
And given that the truck traffic is going to be filtering to Okerson Road, we would ask that the roadway be mill and overlaid.
that is, okay.
No, go ahead.
We agree with that. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's, are we talking about, you know, along the property frontage?
I think they'd like to see it go the length. I understand that your obligation would just be your frontage.
Yeah, we can go further, Ms.
Uh-huh.
Newman. But Okerson, what we would ask is this. First, Mr. Chair and board members, Ms. Newman did alert us earlier that this was a request of the town. I had the opportunity to review it with our client and with Mr. Lynham. We are prepared to pave Okerson Road. We are prepared to mill it and to do a 2-inch overlay. We would like to do it at the end of construction so that the road's in good shape when the project is finished. And a portion of Okerson Road is not in Howell. A portion is in another municipality. So we would be talking about milling and resurfacing all of Okerson Road that's in Howell. We're not in front of a jurisdiction. We're not, yeah. But without, we're not looking to limit it to our frontage. All of Okerson that is in Howell will be milled and resurfaced with a 2-inch overlay.
And that would just be my request, echoing the engineering department's requirements. And I'm happy to hear that the applicant is agreeable to that.
We are, and Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the goal of this applicant has been to earn the approval by earning this board's approval. When that was presented to us, we saw the benefits, we talked about them internally, and we confirmed that we can do it. So we're pleased to do it.
Beyond that, Mr. Chairman, I think I said 3 questions. I just want to also confirm on the record, Mr. Lyman, you've reviewed our technical engineering review and you agree to those comments?
Yes.
Okay, with that, Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further at this time.
Laura, if I could, you asked if we're bringing sanitary sewer. We're bringing sanitary sewer and potable water supply. Both of those are being brought to the site a substantial distance.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, when ready, we'll recall Dr. Walker.
Okay, well, let's get you an answer on the lighting. How about that?
Terrific.
Do our professionals want to weigh in on the 2 plans that they have presented?
So, Mr. Chairman, Shari is not here tonight. She's at a conference. I had the opportunity to speak with her, and our sense is that the alternate lighting plan, although it requires a waiver, and that's because it exceeds the minimum of 0.3 and provides just over the average of 0.5. That plan would provide, the alternate plan provides a minimum of 0.5 and an average of 0.8 foot candles. And Shari felt that given the use of the property, that was appropriate.
Okay. I personally have no objections. Does anybody else on the board have any comments about that?
No, I was just going to ask, with the, slightly higher average, does it have any effect in terms of spillage or anything to adjacent properties? But probably not.
That is correct, but I'd ask the applicants
Yes.
on the record to confirm that there is no light spillage.
Yes, there's no light spillage. There are some, there's some light spillage, but it's not significant. It's across along public right of ways where we want to concentrate light intersections.
Okay. Mr. Pape, you got your answer?
Thank you. We'll make
You're
certain.
welcome.
And I have I'm working from my notes, and I have to make an apology to the board. And a moment ago, I said we're bringing a potable water supply, and I'm looking at my notes. What we agreed to do was to create a firefighting water supply, and that was the tank. Extending the water line was not it was not part of the application. So I apologize. It's to create we will create a firefighting water supply to satisfy Chief Lewis and the township requirements, but it did not involve extending the line. And I apologize. That's my mistake for my notes.
I have a question for our professionals. I have been trying to search for it on our township codes, but I'm unable to find it. My memory serves me right that there were some ordinances maybe a couple years ago that were put in place about these types of buildings, and the location of the loading docks in relationship to being able to view them from a highway or a roadway. Am I remembering that right, that these loading docks being able to be seen from Route 33 may not be in compliance with that ordinance?
I would
I don't
say-
re-
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Laura.
I was going to defer to Jen. I think the only provision I can think of off the top of my head is that we don't permit loading in a front yard.
Yes. I don't think it has to be, I don't think it's like to be seen. I think it's physically in the front yard.
If you remember, Mr. Chairman, we actually did have that issue with a recent warehouse application where they did ask for relief from that requirement.
Okay. Do you think that the way the angle is for the one warehouse towards Route 33 meets that requirement, or is it just skewed enough that it doesn't?
Well, I guess the question is it a front yard? I think that's, the way our ordinance is written, that's the primary question. So I would defer, to Laura and Jen, but I think that's the beginning question. Is it a front yard?
I did not find the loading configuration to require relief. My review of it was that it complied with that it's not located in the front yard. Laura, do you disagree?
No, I agree. We have that the property only has frontage on Howell Road or Okeson Road, and that might
Yes.
Curtin Lane. So there technically is no frontage on 33, and that would act deferring to Jen, but as a side lot line.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
what's the definition that, if you guys know, of what a front yard is?
The property has to physically front on the roadway.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, different towns have different definitions.
Yeah, no, it has to physically front on the roadway. It's not just facing the roadway. It has to physically front on it.
I don't want to interrupt this dialogue between the board and its professionals, but I can point out that the area of concern, Mr. Chairman, is also very heavily landscaped. That's there's a farm buffer landscaping requirement that we are in full compliance with.
I have no further questions. Does anybody else on the board have questions for this witness? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Pape,
Thank you.
please continue.
So, yeah, we intentionally did not revisit all of the testimony that you heard at the last meeting, but the summary was of that we had designed without variances, and your reports supported that. We had gone to your fire chief and shade tree officials and the environmental commission, and we're very pleased that all the reports that were provided indicating that there were no outstanding concerns from those. Dr. Raymond Walker is our environmental consultant. He too was sworn, and his credentials as an environmental scientist made part of the record. I remind Dr. Walker that he is under oath. Counselor, do you wish for him to make any statements before he starts his testimony?
Just to state and spell his name again.
Raymond Walker, RaymondWalker.
When Dr. Walker talked about the environmental concerns on the site, and they were fairly minimal. We talked about the cemetery that was adjacent to our site, and there was some soil testing that was done, and anomalies had been found on that cemetery. I know there were a couple of additional questions that the board had about those. We asked that Dr. Walker do further research and interview the individual who had actually tested that area And I would ask if Dr. Walker, if you could address those concerns.
Sure. So a question was raised by a member of the board regarding the GPR anomalies that were found along the outside perimeter of the Jerseyville Cemetery, and whether or not those anomalies could represent some type of environmental concern, such as an underground storage tank or buried debris. So I checked with our GPR expert, and he did prepare a report of his findings. And in the report, he indicates that those anomalies have the same dimensions as a trench or a grave. And they're approximately 3.5 to 6.5 feet deep. In addition, the GPR analysis did not reveal the presence of any metal or solid waste material in those anomalies. And that based on a review also of historic aerial photography, there were no buildings in those areas, which would normally be associated with an underground tank, or there was no evidence of any type of garbage disposal, at least as far back as 1931. So he's 100% sure that those anomalies that are outside of the actual graveyard limits represent old graves or graves that may have been excavated and moved back into the graveyard. If they found out they were off the property, he can't say which is which, but he's 100% sure that those anomalies represent graveyard activities or graves.
And I know that was the question that was posed to you. There was a question posed at the last meeting that's already been answered, and that was what precautions were built into the design so that these graves that are on the common border of our client's property and the cemetery, what design criteria was built in to make certain that we do not disturb any of those graves?
Yeah, if you look at the design plan, you'll see that the development plan is set back from those anomalies by, I mean, Patrick can confirm the distance, but I think it's around about 10 feet or more from any of those anomalies that were found outside of the actual graveyard property limits.
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, and that was on the record the last time. And Dr. Walker, I know that there was also some questions about the implementation of the RAO, the response action outcome letter that's required when environmental cleanup is necessary. And in the reports that we provided, we identified that there is some limited environmental cleanup required. If you could just speak to your communications with the LSRP and how that will be addressed.
Sure, I testified last time that there were two areas in the farm field, one in the northeast corner and one in the central part of the state where we had some minor elevations of arsenic. The state standard for arsenic is around 19 parts per million. We found levels of around 21 to 39 parts per million. And then for dieldrin, the DEP limits are 0.034 parts per million, and we found levels of 0.034 to 0.038 parts per million. And there is an assigned LSRP for this project who's responsible for remediating those areas. And as I testified last time, there could be a couple of different options. One could be a blending, one could be a removal, or one could be a capping of those areas. And the LSRP will be preparing a remedial action outcome as to how the best way to remediate those areas will be, and it'll be submitted to DEP for review and approval. That remedial action or that remedial action outcome activity will occur during construction, and it'll be implemented again in accordance with DEP standards.
And that implementation of the soil remediation during construction for an industrial building is not an uncommon occurrence, Dr. Walker?
No, it's usually because it's usually incorporated as part of that construction activity. When they're going to be disturbing the earth, they'll decide whether to remove or excavate, or whether or not they feel it's better to just cap the site with maybe the foundation of the building. That'll have to be reviewed and approved by DEP, and once it is, that'll be implemented as part of the construction activities.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the commitment of your applicant to the board and to the township is that there will be a licensed site remediation professional, an LSRP, part of the team from the very beginning of the development through its conclusion, and that the applicant will stipulate that no occupancy, no certificate of occupancy, temporary or otherwise, will be requested until the RAO has been issued and filed with the DEP. Dr. Walker, I think those were the two open items that the board had posed to you.
Yeah, I believe those are the only two.
Okay, I have nothing further of Dr. Walker. He is available to the board and board's professionals at this time if you wish.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Newman?
I do not have any questions either.
Okay, Mr. Pape, I have it in my notes that the anomalies occurred at the property line would be deed restricted. Does that need to be restated again?
It's on the record. We'll restate it. That 10-foot swath around our property will have a permanent deed restriction. Yes.
Thank you.
Surely.
Does anybody else from the board have any questions? Okay. No?
There was a question, I think that went to me to answer. We're talking about what the potential uses of the building were. And we had indicated that we would be in strict compliance with those that are permitted uses in the SED zone. And amongst those uses, there's warehouse, there's distribution. These are the ones that are listed. There's warehouse, there's distribution, there's packaging, and there's manufacturing. But manufacturing isn't an overbroad. There's specific definitions of what type of manufacturing in the actual table and also in the notes. And what we would stipulate to Mr. Chair is we are not looking to do anything that is not expressly permitted in the SED zone. And the definitions that are in the township's ordinance, we agree that those are the definitions that are to be followed for the interpretation of your ordinance. But primarily, we envision that this is warehousing and distribution, and there may be some packaging where large packages are opened and put into smaller packages before being distributed.
You're muted, Ron.
I just want to make clear that and I think we discussed it before, in the applicant's view of warehouse, that does not include a fulfillment center.
No, it's not a fulfillment center. This is not a fulfillment building. Thank you. Sean Nager is the architect. He made some minor revisions to the plan. I'm going to ask if Mr. Nager can be recalled. I'll remind Mr. Nager that he is under oath, and I'll remind the board that he was qualified as an architect and as his area of expertise.
I wanted to make sure everyone can see the screen.
So, Mrs. Rabano, could you, the screen that Mr. Nager has just put up, if you could tell us which one we're looking at? I think, is this building A, Mr. Nager?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so.
And Mr. Nager, can you just please restate your name for us?
First name is Sean, S-E-A-N. Last name is Nager, N-A-E-G-E-R.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Nager, so I think this is A30, Mrs. Rabano? So if you could, Mr. Nager, if you could just point out the embellishments to this building, to these buildings that you've added in response to the staff.
Certainly. One of the board members had a request that the drawings use vision obscuring glass above the canopy. So we have accommodated that. And the intent of that was so, from at night, they won't see any construction implements like wires and duct work and things of that nature. We also added mechanical louvers. Those mechanical louvers will not be taking the place of the glass windows. The mechanical louvers will always occur above the man doors in these recessed areas. There was a request in our various meetings with Ms. Beam that we add a water table course at the base of the building per her plan review comments. And you can now see that we have this water table course that runs the perimeter of the building. All of these revisions to this exhibit and to the other drawings were reviewed with Ms. Beam during a phone conversation on September 15th of 2021. Those were the only comments that I had record of. Open to any questions.
That is our direct presentation from Mr. Nager, Mr. Chairman, and he's now available.
Thank you. Do any of our professionals have any comments on the changes or the location of the louvers?
No, sir, I think the representation made to the board is consistent with the conversations that we have had prior to the meeting.
Fair enough. Thank you. Does anybody from the board have comments? Seeing none, Mr. Pape?
Early.
Please continue.
And sure, I'll defer to Mr. Chairman, to you at this point. Patrick did a description of the on-site circulation, the parking, the loading docks. He took us through the revisions that were made that were responsive to the board. He also described the widening of the road, the changing of the driveways, the driveway signage, and also the paving and curbing that was requested. From our perspective, it was a fairly thorough presentation of the traffic elements of the plan, but we do have Dan Desario and Joseph Fishinger, who are a part of the team if the board wishes to hear from them. I defer to you on that as to whether the testimony that you've heard adequately addresses those issues.
I'll just ask my professionals if they have any questions or other further comments, or do they feel that the application is complete?
I have nothing.
Yeah, I have nothing further as well.
Okay, you guys are okay with the circulation plan, the size of the tanks, all that stuff?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. As was indicated, there were changes and we wanted to clarify, as Mr. Lyman had testified to, that the left turn lane had been removed from Howell Road and that appropriate signage was going to be put up. That was steering a lot of our traffic comments that were in our technical report. And we understand that they would like to maintain the two-way on-site circulation and don't want to have infringements into the buffer. So I'm happy to work with them to ensure that works as well. So I have nothing further.
And if I understand the revised layout, Ms. Newman, it looks like they widen the roadways towards the back of the property that allows the trucks more turning radius. Is that my understanding? Am I reading the plans right?
Yeah, on the plans, yes. We had a little bit of concerns regarding conflicting movements, but given how the trucks will be circulating through the site and the provisions that trucks would not be exiting out of Howell Road and only going out to Okerson, I am satisfied.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Does anybody else on the board have comments? If not, we'll open it up to the public. Okay. Mr. Cuchero?
Mr. Chair, is this for questions and comments?
For the public?
Yes.
Well, I think, let's ask Mr. Pape. Mr. Pape, if you conclude, does this conclude your testimony? Should we open it to the public?
Mr. Chair, that is the applicant's direct presentation. We remain available for further questions of the board or the board's professionals, but we do rest on our direct presentation.
So we'll open it for questions and comments. Ms. Urbano, you want to mute yourself and tell the public how they can go about raising their hand and unmuting themselves accordingly. And we will give the customary minute and a half for people to raise their hand.
Okay, at this time, the chairman has opened up the hearing for members of the public. Anyone wishing to comment or ask questions regarding this application, please use the raise your hand feature. We'll bring you into the meeting one at a time. We'll give everyone a minute in between just to get their hand raised. If you're calling in, you need to do *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And we do have a caller with their hand raised. AJC, can you turn your camera on and unmute yourself, please?
Their video.
There you go.
Okay, now you can see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to participate.
Hold on, just, sir, just before you get started, let me swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
Okay, and if you could just state and spell your name and give us your address.
My name is Albert J. Sestero Jr. I live at 3 Howell Road, Freehold, New Jersey, 07728.
And
And I
Mr.
will
Cicero,
be-
how do you spell your last name?
Cestero. I am a
Okay, go ahead, sir.
junior. I live at 3 Howell Road, and this project will be in my backyard. I have a couple of concerns. One of them is in the description, it describes this as a one-story warehouse. It's supposed to be 45 feet tall. To me, that's 4.5 stories, because I always considered, and most people, most engineers consider 10 feet a story. If you live in a building in New York City, that's 8 floors, it's 8 stories, it's 80 feet high, whatever. So the description to me doesn't seem valid in the writings. I've lived on this property for 38 years. I'm a business owner in Howell for 44 years. I started my shop when I was 23 years old, and I'm 67 years old now. The Jerseyville section of Howell Township has had a quaintness about it. I'm not opposed to progress. My wife and I both went to bat for the swim club across the street from us when they were turned down at their prior locations, I believe off of Merrick Road or whatever. We also went to bat for the baseball fields. They're family oriented. If you leave my shop, I'm in Howell Mini Park. I've been there for 44 years. I start my 45th year, December 10th, and you turn left and you head towards our property. You'll pass the cabin on the left-hand side. You'll pass, I'm directly across from the Fire Academy. You'll pass the Bobcat dealer, the new Car Tech auto auction. I'm in the area a long time, so I know a lot of what they used to be and everything, but everything's been nicely done. When you get to the traffic light on Fairfield Road and the former 2R cycle shop now is a pool place, on the left-hand side is the Grange. It looks like you could be in Maine or Vermont. You continue on Route 33 and you'll hit Sakers Industrial Park that's been there forever. Used to be an Alice Chalmers dealership. That's how old I am. And across the street, the other industrial parks, the Wawa on Okerson Road, everything's been done nicely and in concert with the lay of the land and the area. However, this seems to be gargantuan. It seems to be a monstrosity. Now, I did a little research. And today, Port Authority has 223 loading bays. They call them gates for the buses. I was a little confused because I thought that this project had 68 loading docks for tractor trailers. And I redid it a little bit. I think, if I'm correct, it's 55 loading docks in Building A and 28 loading docks in Building B. Is that correct?
Patrick, that sounds correct, right?
Okay, so that makes 83 loading docks. Now, the brand new Port Authority that they, I don't know if they broke ground on it yet, that has 160. They actually downgraded their loading bays, their gates from 223 to 160. Now, I got to be honest with you. I don't know why anyone in their right minds would be wanting to bring tractor trailers in a depot to operate 24/7, 365 in this area. I know that Howell Road is a 4-ton road. I've lived on the property for 38 years. Plenty of tractor trailers drive on it. I've never seen one of them ticketed. I'm pro-police. I was actually Citizen of the Year, a co-citizen of the year in 2016 for my first response to a motor vehicle accident that happened on my front lawn, 5 minutes after I went to my mailbox. So I'm pro-police, I'm pro-business, I'm pro-progress. I love the area, but this is way too big a project to be putting in here. You're talking about 24 hour a day, 7 days a week, and you're talking about tractor trailers. Now, we enjoy the children that ride their bicycles from the adjacent developments to the swim club. We hear the banter, the people having fun at the swim club. The ball fields, the same thing. There's been days when there's cars parallel parked on both sides of the roads for a quarter of a mile in each direction when they have tournaments and what have you. And I'll be out in my yard and I'll hear the PA system going on, and then I'll hear the roar of the crowd. And you know what? Puts a smile on my face. I love it. I love children. I love families. I love all of that. I love Howell Township, and I love the Jerseyville section of Howell Township. Mr. Buck from Bucks Mills Road, a descendant, grew up, was born in what's a bedroom in our home. Our home dates back to 1863, and we love the area. This is taking half the size of Port Authority and putting it between two small country roads.
150 feet from our backyard.
That doesn't matter because they're allowed to do whatever they do. So that's my concern. My concern is smelling tractor trailers idling while they're loading. Lights.
Travel.
Danger to those kids that are in the Little League and riding their bicycles. That's not going to happen anymore. And it's just a way too big thing to be shoehorned in this area. It won't blend in. I'm appealing to the planning board here as a Howell Township resident and a lover of this area for my entire life. And the planning board's job is supposed to get something that benefits Howell Township and also blends into the area. You can put as many trees as you want, but you're talking a 45-foot high building. That's tall. The new Port Authority that they planned in New York City is only 5 stories. And this building that you're putting up, as you could call it 1 story, but it's 4.5 stories high. So that's a huge concern for me. And I can't understand. I'm appalled that the planning board would even think of this. Now, you talk about rateables and bringing money into Howell Township. I did a little research again, and Equestra has 483 living luxury homes, and they start at around 400,000 to 600,000. The seniors, they don't have kids to impact the school systems in Howell Township. Our daughters went to the school system. They have great school systems. A little bit up the road, Four Seasons, they have 111 luxury homes that they're building, and they start at 600,000. That's also over 55, with no impact to the infrastructure of the town at all, except for the police. The traffic, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not opposed to traffic. I have an auto body shop, but I am opposed to making a Port Authority in this small area. A little bit further up the road at Regency, those homes are starting at $715,000 to $833,000, and they have 155 homes logged. So that's a lot of money for Howell Township to get as far as rateables. And Howell Township doesn't have to put anything out. They don't have to put anything. No garbage, no anything. We have a great police force, and they earn, but it's not these senior homes that are going in there aren't impacting our school systems, which, by the way, there's a few vacant buildings in Howell Township. Our daughters went to Gribbling School and then the middle school, and there's vacant buildings, a couple of vacant elementary school buildings. So I'm begging the planning board to reconsider this. The professional presentation is amazing. It's wonderful, but this is not going to blend into the Jerseyville section of Howell, which was very strongly agricultural and industrial. There used to be an Indian motorcycle dealership at the turn of in the 1930s, right on the corner where the Italian delicatessen was. That's now gone. That the state bought the land. And like I said, I'm in an industrial business myself, and putting something in this size with the operation being 24/7 with tractor trailers, And even in the description, the professional said it's not going to be an Amazon, which tells me that it looks like it could be an Amazon facility. It's sure going to be big enough to be a fulfillment center, but it's not going to be. But what difference does it make if the structure is going to be there and the traffic is going to be there, which is what I think is crazy. I believe Okerson Road is also a 4-ton road. I could be wrong, but I don't know about that.
Or only driveway.
Our frontage is on our back. We have frontage on Howell Road and Okerson Road.
Yeah, Mr.
And
Cicero,
that's our back driveway. Yes,
let's get that answered. Mr. Lyman,
go ahead.
Yes.
can you, oh.
Is Okerson
I
Road?
don't want to talk, sorry, Mr. Pape. Can you please respond to the weight rating on the road, please, Okerson?
I do not have the personal knowledge, but working with the team, I'm aware that Okerson handles the trucks that we're proposing. Mr. Lynham, am I correct that it is only Howell Road that has the weight restriction?
Actually, I don't know for 100% sure. I know how Road is, and I know that Okerson Road does handle all the truck traffic currently.
Let me comment on handling the truck traffic.
So we'll get that for you,
Okay,
Mr.
okay, because Howell Road handles truck traffic every day. If I took a video of Howell Road on a daily basis, you're going to see 20, 30 tractor trailers on Howell Road, and they've never been ticketed. And we've lived on this property for 38 years. Even though it's posted, they don't enforce the law. And I'm not asking them to enforce the law. But if you're going into a new project where you're going to have tractor trailers, that's what it's specific for. You're making this project specific to be a port authority in Howell Township, in the Jerseyville section of Howell Township. This is way better suited to someplace like Huntsville, Alabama, off of Route 64 or something like that. There's people, we've been in this house for a long time. We have an old house, it's small, but there's people that paid a lot of money for their homes in this area, and they're within earshot, they're within smell shot, because everybody knows when you go to New York City and you go to Port Authority, what does it smell like? It smells like diesel, because that's what that's what fuels these trucks. So I'm not, I have no animosity towards anyone, but I do ask, I implore the planning board to think about this. Look at the site itself. Look at how this is not going to blend in. The swim club blends in beautifully. The ball field, if we're going to develop this land, make it something family oriented or single family homes.
If I may, on behalf of the applicant, and briefly, fully understand and respect the concerns of this family. This is an application that is 100% consistent with the goals of the township as they're set forth in your zoning ordinance and your master plan. This is the area that was designated for special economic
I'm
development.
aware of that. I've been in this area for 30
I didn't interrupt you, sir.
Right.
Right.
I'm aware of that.
Let him finish.
Mr. Chair, the applicant, the presentation is an application that's consistent with your zoning ordinance and your master plan. It has no variance relief. The building height of 45 feet or less is the definition of building height for the zone. 1 story means that there's 1 floor. There aren't separate floors in the building.
Excuse me, what your photograph shows 2 floors in the building in the office.
Hold it, Mr. Chairman.
But that's okay.
We have to allow Mr. Pape to answer the question first.
Sure.
So there can be a response. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Pape.
Sure, thank you. As the board is aware, the applicant has followed all of the requirements that are in the ordinance and all of the guidance and direction provided by the board members and the staff. We recognize that this has changed, but it is change that is consistent with the master plan goals. And it's an interesting analogy to compare us to a bus depot. I mean, we're not a bus depot, and comparing the number of stalls in a bus depot to the number of loading docks in a warehouse is an interesting analogy. I don't know that it carries very well, but we stand on the application that's presented. It is one that is consistent with the zoning ordinance and the master plan.
Can I reply?
Yes.
As far as the analogy between a bus depot and tractor trailer loading docks, tractor trailers are actually longer than buses. They take up more space. They're both fueled by diesel. And I use the analogy of Port Authority because it's probably the biggest and busiest bus terminal in the world. And you're trying to turn this area here. And I understand that you're within all your rights, your legal rights. Of course you are. Like I said, I'm a businessman in the area for 44 years, and I know about variances, and I know about setbacks and the heights and everything like that. That's why I'm not appealing to you. That's why I'm appealing to the planning board to do the right thing for Howell Township. You know, if it's about money and developing the land, I just showed you where Howell Township has a cash cow with all of these senior developments, and they're not cheap homes. They're big money homes. These people are paying $15,000, $20,000 property tax per year, and they're getting a great police force out of it. So I understand.
Mr. Cuchero, could you please explain to Mr. Sestero that the planning board has no jurisdiction to weigh a application based upon possible or potential tax income coming into.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We don't have those rights.
I get that.
Not something we can do.
But I hear from people about, well, it's a good rateable for Howell Township. Just think about where you're putting it.
Well, but the point is that we understand your point, sir. It's not something we can consider.
Right.
It's not something anyone here has said, you know, on the board. It's a good rateable. So it's not something that we can continue to listen to.
I understand that. I understand.
And I have the answer on the weight limits are.
Let's just wait for Mr. Cesaro. Do you have anything else?
I can listen to Mr. Pape.
All right.
Go ahead.
Mr. Pape.
Yeah. The Howell Road is the only weight restricted road. Okerson is not weight restricted. I've got that information from our engineering team.
Okay. What about Michael Curtin Lane?
I don't think you're going on Michael Curtin Lane. Can you confirm that, Mr. Pace?
Mr. Lynham, if you could maybe show the screen and show our driveways to show that we're not using Michael Curtin Lane.
Sure. So you can see to the north, Michael Curtin Lane is along the northern property line.
Right.
And our driveway's exiting onto Okerson, which passes the intersection with Michael Curtin Lane.
Okay. Well, thank you for showing me that.
Anything else, Mr. Sestero?
No,
No, but I want to talk.
My wife Jacqueline wants to talk, if it's okay.
She can be.
I just need to swear her in first.
Go ahead.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please state and spell your name for the record.
It's Jacqueline Cestero. Jacqueline.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Last name. So Albert previously mentioned that we've lived here 38 years happily, and our driveway, because Howell Road is such a busy road, we use our driveway to the rear of the house because
Michael Curtin Lane.
It exits onto Michael Curtin Lane because Howell Road is so busy that, you know, with young children, we never wanted to enter onto Howell Road if we didn't have to. So Michael Curtin Lane is where my 7 grandchildren ride their bikes, play ball. They're still too little to walk to the ball field or the swim club or to any of the, Wawa, anything like that. They're under 7. So, I mean, that's a big concern for me with the quality of life that we have here. We're the only home here. There's a home on either side of us, but they're businesses. So we don't have a lot of people behind us to say, it's a monstrosity. This place is going to be literally 150 feet from my back door.
Can I stop? Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
I have a question about.
Well, no, actually, the way this works is it's one at a time.
Okay.
So let's defer to your wife and let her finish.
And then I want to come back.
So it's literally 150 feet from my back door, out my backyard, which is obviously, if you're familiar with Howell Road, And where our house is, it's only approximately 15 feet off of Howell Road. We do a lot of living in the backyard. We're going to be dealing with lights all night long, noise
All night long.
all day long, 365 days a year.
Diesel fuel.
The smell is going to be horrendous. It's going to force, we've already had our water contaminated by this property. It's going to be forcing us to leave. I mean, I'm near tears. I'm sick to my stomach because we've been here 38 years, finally starting to retire, and this is what I'm left with. And I know appealing to you personally isn't supposed to do anything, but it's all that I have. So please reconsider or think about what this is going to look like and what it's going to do to our quality of life. We're not going to have quality of life. We're just not. I already know just from the few warehouses around, just the lights alone, we've managed to live with that and it's okay. But this is going to be horrendous. So just reconsider. I'm very disappointed in the Foremans. They're my neighbors for a long time. And I'm just very upset with them. That's all I have to say.
Can I come back now?
Yes.
Thank you. As far as a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day a year, I don't understand if that's in the, has that changed? Because the last time that they were developing on Okerson Road and Seafree Plaza and these other areas here, there were restrictions as for what hours of the day they could operate on. So has that been changed? Has the laws in whatever SED3 zone, has that been changed at all?
Mr. Pape?
No, yeah, they're in the zoning ordinance for the SCD zone. There are no hours, there are no restriction on hours.
Okay, so the last times we went before the board, I guess it was just the courtesy of the people that were going for Seafree Plaza to establish limits on their hours of operation?
I don't know any other application. An application before the zoning board, there could be restrictions on hours, but as an application before the planning board for a use that is expressly permitted in a zone that doesn't have time constraints.
Okay.
That's what we have.
Okay. Well, like I said, I have no animosity towards the professionals, the planners, but I'm asking the planning board to give us some thought about doing the right thing for Howell Township.
Thank you, Mr. Sestero.
I have nothing more to say.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Have a good night. Eileen?
Is anyone else who would like to comment or ask questions on this application? Please use the raise your hand feature.
We'll give it about another 30 seconds. Eileen,
Okay,
no one else is raising their hand?
I have someone now. Hold on, Patricia. Tricia, can you unmute yourself and start your video, please? I moved her into the meeting, but I don't see her.
I see her in the corner here.
Okay.
Right.
Patricia,
We're in now, right? I'm
we
in?
can hear you. Can you turn your camera on for us so I can swear you in?
like I said, I'm new at this. Okay, maybe that's it. Am I
Yep,
on?
you got it. You
There
got
you
it.
go.
Yeah, I just had,
Okay.
I
Well,
just had.
just one more. I just need to
Oh, I'm
swear you in
sorry.
first, ma'am. Do you
Sure,
swear
sure.
or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, if you could just spell your name for us and give us your address.
Yes, my name is Patricia, Patricia, Schwecke, S like in Sam, Chweckee. I live at 14 Wooden Close in, well, my mailing address is Freehold, but it's Howell, and that's Surrey Downs.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Schweckey.
All right, this is my question. I'm a transplant of 50 years in Bergen County. I'm new down here, just about a year. I just got wind of this tonight. I don't know how far this place would, I know where Howell Road is. My question is, how much would this impact on Elton, Adelphia, the traffic, the increase in traffic?
Mr. Pate?
Sure, I think, Patrick, if you could put up on the screen. And then I'm going to ask if you feel capable of opining the distance from our site to, is it 524 that we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
So just take Howell Road and go south.
Yeah.
And you'll run into 524. It's quite a distance.
Yeah.
None of the trucks going that way, are they, Chief?
But now, if since Howell Road is weight restricted, there's not going to be any type of truck traffic on Howell Road leading out to 524, also known as Elton, Adelphia.
Yeah. So there's no proposed truck movements from this site that would go towards 520.
Like heading towards Route 9, because, this is a development where most of the people are, I would say there's some young ones moving in that I've noticed, but most of the people are over 70. And it's a little hairy at rush hour, but other than that, it's, pretty, coming from Bergen County, Paramus, Route 17, this is nothing, but I'm just concerned about getting in and out of the driveway on Surrey Downs.
Right. So Ms. Schrecky, I can, as the police chief, I can tell you this, knowing that area, I grew up actually right by the Adelphia Firehouse, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
And my grandmother lived in Surrey Downs, so.
I love it here. I'm very happy here.
So I foresee all the trucks going down to Okerson. They're gonna pick up Halls Mills Road, which and they're gonna proceed south to the new interchange there that they did at 524 on Halls Mills Road, which brings you out onto Edinburgh, which dumps out onto Route 9. Or they're just going to traverse onto 33 bypass or regular business 33 from the site. So I don't see this impacting Surrey Downs whatsoever.
But if I could say something off the record, I lived in Paramus I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but it's very, very congested, many malls, whatever. And I saw this change in Paramus, and I just listened to this couple speak, and my heart goes out to them, because once that building is in, it's a done deal. And I hope that things go the way, I don't know their names, but I hope things go the way they want them to. I'm sorry that you're going through this trauma. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Schweckey.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have
Urbano? Anybody else?
Annazette Ray. Yes. I just let her into the.
Okay, is she on camera?
Yes.
Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You gotta unmute yourself.
Yes, I do.
Okay, please spell your name for the record and give us your address.
Annazette, Anazette, last name is Ray. I live at 130 Lions Court. The mailing address is Freehold, but it's Howell. It's over off of 5 Points Road by the Wawa.
Okay, go ahead.
And as I kind of had a follow-up as to Ms. Schwecky's question, were there any studies as to the impact of traffic on 5 Points Road, mainly trucks coming off of Route 18, taking 5 Points down to truck Route 33 and trying to get Okerson Road there?
The traffic studies that were performed are part of the record. This is a permitted use, so it wasn't necessary to analyze the capacity of the surrounding roadways. it was necessary for us to identify the traffic movements that came out of the site.
Okay, well, I guess the issue is on 5 Points, there are numerous bus stops for the kids that attend Howell Middle School North, Adelphia and Ardena. And during the winter, the middle school bus comes at about 6:30 a.m. So there are kids out there on 5 Points Road in the dark during most of the school year. And how is that going to be a danger to have all these trucks coming down 5 Points to kids that are waiting in the dark for the school bus? Was there any consideration given to that?
I think that the best way to answer it is to have Joseph Fishinger, who is the author of the traffic report, to join us, and he can respond to the question of Ms. Ray. So with permission, we'll bring Mr. Fishinger in, share with you his credentials, and have him answer the question.
Just let me know when he gets here.
Joe, we need you to camera and unmute.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
I just remind you that you remain under oath, and please just state and spell your name for the record again.
I've got to put him under oath, and
okay.
Yeah, we have to do it. Yeah, Mr. Fishinger is the author of one of the authors of the traffic report. Mr. Fishinger needs to be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure, it's Joseph Fishinger, Fishinger. I'm the Director of Traffic Engineering with Brightview Engineering. Qualifications very quickly. I'm a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Rutgers University, a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey, also certified professional traffic operations engineer. My license is in good standing, and I have been qualified as a traffic expert in front of this board before. It's been a few years, but I have been in front of you already.
Mr. Chair, may he so testify?
Yes, we'll accept the
Thank you.
credentials. Thank
So,
you.
Mr. Fisher, I think one of the most important facts you can share is the weight restrictions on 5 Points Road. I think that might address a big part of the question.
I'm not aware exactly of if there is a weight restriction all the way down to 5 Points Road. Don't have that information immediately in front of me.
Okay. I'll have it for you in a moment. So if you could respond to the question about the impact of truck movements on 5 Points Road.
So in our traffic study, we did look at the intersection of Route 33 and Howell Road / 5 Points Road. And without going through the entire traffic study, we are only projecting a total of 9 vehicles in the morning peak hour and 10 vehicles in the evening peak hour to even use 5 Points Road. And keep in mind, that's total vehicles, not just heavy trucks. We're expecting that during most of those vehicles will just be passenger cars from employees coming to and from the site. So we do not anticipate a high number of trucks on that section of roadway. Most of the trucks that will be coming to and from this facility will be sticking to the state highways where the roads are designed for them, and they can move, quite honestly, move the fastest.
Okay. There is on just this is just for the record, Mr. Chair, there is a weight limit of 4 tons sign that is posted on the property. It is on the Wawa property right at the intersection. So just worth that restriction's in place. If anyone wants to Google, you can see the sign very clearly.
So for the answer, Ms. Ray's inquiry is that tractor trailers are prohibited on 5 Points.
It would appear to be with a weight limit of 4 tons sign.
I could tell you, living off of 5 Points, there are tractor trailers every day.
I agree.
almost every hour. And I think it would be a big safety concern for the kids who are waiting for bus stops in the dark most of the school year, with not sufficient lighting too.
The position of the applicant is that the project has been properly designed and that the master plan identifies this as where this type of activity is to be constructed. And the applicant is entitled to rely on the existing roadway system, provided that they abide by all of those requirements.
And I could tell you, as a construction attorney, there are other considerations besides properly designed, such as the impact and safety to the community members that the board can take into consideration when determining whether to approve or deny the application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Anything? Oh, okay. I'm gonna ask her if she had anything else.
No, that's it. Thank you.
You got it. Have a good night.
You too.
Ms. Urbano, anybody else have their hand raised?
Not right at the moment. If there's anyone else that has, hold on. I have Mark Parisi coming in.
And Mr. Parisi, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state and spell your name and give us your address.
Mark Parisi, MARC, PARISI, 2 Castle Court.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a question. I've listened to the testimony tonight. The planning board is in the process of re-examining their circulation element. It's my understanding the town council has appropriated money to, I believe, the firm that Ms. Beam works for. I was just curious as to potential impacts of the circulation element that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, has not been re-examined since the master plan was adopted in 1994. Potentially impacts if the circulation element comes to conclusions that could impact this application, that if they approve this application and then say 4 to 6 months from now the circulation element is done and comes to conclusions that maybe changes the designation of some of these roads in this area, whether or not it might be prudent for this board who's having their circulation element done to postpone making a decision on this pending the findings of a circulation element. I mean, it would seem as though that if this decision is made, then it's going to probably impact the circulation element in some way with setbacks, whatnot, designation of roads. But if this decision is not made, then the circulation element would not consider this approval in that element. Could someone speak to that?
Mr. Chair, just from a purely legal perspective, I just want to make one correction. The planning board has re-examined its master plan. It used to be every 6 years and sometimes less than that. The requirement is every 10 years. That element hasn't been amended, but it's certainly been re-examined pursuant to the statutory requirements. In terms of the impact that an amendment would have immediately, it would have no impact on an application because it's not an amendment to the zoning ordinance. So we would have to wait to see whether any amendment to the circulation element would lead to an amendment to the zoning ordinance, which would be some time. In terms of delaying a decision, the municipal land use law provides a certain amount of time that a board has to make a decision, and it can't get an extension of that unless it is so granted by an applicant. And if you do not make a decision and that time expires, the applicant can get an automatic approval. So that's just sort of the legal background. But Mr. Pape, you have anything you'd like to add?
Just one additional statement, Mr. Cucchiaro. I think that all of your statements were accurate from our perspective, but there's also there's the time of filing rule, and the time of filing rules is that The laws that are applicable to any given application are the laws that are in place on the day that the application is properly filed. There used to be laws that allowed the towns to change the ordinances while applications were pending, but all of those laws have been set aside. So this applicant has the right to rely on laws of the township as they exist today throughout the application.
That is a true statement.
Okay, I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah,
And
no, that was a legitimate question.
yeah, no, I mean, I guess my only other comment would be, I understand that this property owner and the applicant has a right to develop in accordance with, the laws that is within their right, but it was recently that there was another, warehouse application, which I won't mention, but I think we all know what it was. And that was challenged in court. And I'll paraphrase that, the judge in that decision said, just because you can build something that big doesn't mean that you should. And it seems as though this applicant is building something very intense. And I'm mindful of the people that live in that area and the potential regional impacts. I mean, there's a reason why our state legislatures taking up, possible bills about regional warehouse impacts. And I just would ask the planning board to consider that in their decision. That's all.
Just on that, I did live through that application you're referring to. I wrote the brief. I argued it. In that case, there was also a dispute as to whether variance relief was required, and the applicant did not think so. The board did. The court agreed with the board. There were also several design waivers that were required there that are not required here. So you are correct. The board did win the case, but there were some differences in the facts, that are on the ground.
Understood. That's fair. Just wanted, that was my comment, and that's all I have tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
If there's anyone else that needs to comment on this application or ask questions, please use the raise your hand feature before the chairman closes the public portion of the hearing.
Okay, Ms. Urbano, anybody raising their hand?
I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
Okay, that being said, we will close the public portion of the meeting. Does anybody from the board have any comments they'd like to bring up? Anything further from the public comment? Somebody may want to.
Mr. Chair, given the opportunity, I would ask for just 2 minutes to make some summation points.
Okay, fair enough.
With your permission, Mr. Chair, this is an applicant that has shown tremendous respect to the town's requirements and has worked within the four corners of the ordinance, not only within the four corners, but has gone beyond, when asked to go beyond what the ordinance requirements are. Without exception, this applicant has said yes. The lighting is not an issue. You heard that the lighting is not going to be spilling off the property. That's the design, and the town has the ability to make sure of that. As far as the sound, there are state standards that are also embedded in your ordinance about nighttime sound emissions from the site and daytime sounds. There's no variance relief that's allowed from that at all. So we are obligated to comply with that. And as your professionals have indicated in their reports and on the record, there's no variance relief requested. I think the one waiver that we're asking for is the one that was created by working with the board and the board's professionals on a lighting plan. For all of those reasons, we respectfully ask that this board consider this application this evening favorably. Thank you.
The other thing I would, Mr. Pape, would recommend to provide absolute certainty that you don't have any light spillage off the property. I'd like to ask you if your professional could opine that if adding house side shields to the lights would would help eliminate that possibility, and if that would be something that would be recommended.
As a guarantee, Patrick, can you place it on
Yes.
the record?
Yes.
Yes, that's an agreement.
Yes.
In agreement.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so if you could, is that done, is that your completion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Could we just quickly go through all of the things that the applicant has agreed to?
Well, it's all on the record, Mr. Chair, and it'll all be in the resolution.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay. If board doesn't have any further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
So just, Mr. Chair, what the applicant is seeking is preliminary and final site plan approval with ancillary design waiver relief. So it would either be a motion to approve or to deny that.
As Mr. Cuchero said, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'm going to make a motion to approve case number SP-1085 AAFFHW Property LLC. I understand the Mr. Sestero. I grew up in a very busy area of Howell too. I saw it get developed. But as the planning board, this is a permitted use and the applicant satisfied all of the requirements and actually went overboard. And it's the first time I've seen an applicant actually agree to pave an entire street. So it's beneficial to the township as well. And hopefully they're a good neighbor to those in that area.
Thank you, Chief. Well said. And we'll have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Before I do the roll call, Mr. Bavai has advised me that he has watched the prior hearing, so he has certified to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Bavai.
You're welcome. Mr. Bavai,
No.
Mr. Dorado,
No.
Chief Kudrick,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Cristiano,
No.
Chairman Tannenhouse.
Yes.
We have 3 yes, 3 no.
That's a denial, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, that's what the board said. That's their right.
For the record, the applicant was not aware that you had a short board this evening. And I wish that we had been so advised. Mr. Chairman, I thank you and good night.
Thank you. With that being said, do we have any master plan updates?
I expect to have a draft land use element to the master plan subcommittee within the next week. That would be the next item. I know that the township has a survey of intersections of concern that would be utilized ultimately in the circulation element that's been up on the website for, I think, a couple weeks now. So with literally over 500 responses having come in. So I think they're going to keep that up for another week or so. And then we're going to go through and kind of, obviously, I'm sure that there's duplicates in there. So we'll have to kind of pare that down. That the information would then be provided to the master plan subcommittee for their review. And then that circulation element would follow after
Okay.
that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other business we need to discuss?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night and happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Thank you.